Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you're starting the week off with a bang. Today, we're going to be delivering our daily cryptocurrency market update, where we not only tackle the realms of cryptocurrency, but we look at the external world around us. As we know, a lot of the answers to what's taking place within our space now lie elsewhere, like the broader sort of economic landscape. Policies, such as policies from the Federal Reserve, what's going on with governments, global political events, and so on and so forth. So that's what we try and do with these updates. We try and kind of piece everything together. We are going to be talking about the crypto space at large. And right now, we have got a looming issue, potentially, of the Biden administration. The White House essentially came out and said that they want to regulate Bitcoin and crypto as a matter of national security. Now, we looked at this yesterday, and we actually gave a rather bullish scenario for this. And I argued that, in actual fact, there's a number of reasons why Biden may want to work with crypto, such as popularity, the fact that we know it's estimated 15 to 25% of Americans actually own crypto. And he wouldn't want to upset them, certainly given his ratings with the midterms coming up. And there's a number of other reasons why the US may want to adopt and properly regulate and not over-regulate and kill the cryptocurrency market, because they can actually benefit from it as a nation. But there is, of course, a counter-argument to this. And we're going to be listening to Mr. Sherman. And he puts forward that counter-argument and actually says that Bitcoin is a threat to the United States, mainly because they have the reserve currency status. The US dollar is the world reserve currency, and this gives the US a great amount of power and leverage over the world, over the nations within the world, essentially. And what Bitcoin would do if it gained notoriety, if it gained the status as a real challenger to the world reserve currency, the dollar, it would allow countries to essentially bypass sanctions from the US, and the US would lose a lot of power to Bitcoin as it lost its kind of reserve currency status. So there's this battle that's kind of taking place. It's why we always look at Bitcoin in comparison with, this is of course the US dollar, and this is Bitcoin. These charts are very tethered, and we're going to be listening to what this guy has to say, making a few comments on it. I would argue that this isn't going to come out, hopefully, regulating crypto or overburdening the cryptocurrency market with regulations, as this would be extremely detrimental. You know, the US coming out and doing something like banning or attacking the cryptocurrency markets, Bitcoin, most notably, would be extremely detrimental to the price. And this is one of the biggest threats. There's a number of other threats, like Satoshi's wallet becoming active. Remember, Satoshi owns 1 million Bitcoin. I would argue that if Satoshi's wallet became active, the entire market would plummet due to people going, well, why all of a sudden has Satoshi decided to activate his wallet? So we're going to get into it. There's a lot to talk about. The US crypto executive order looms. 5 things to watch in Bitcoin this week. So there is the potential for this order to be given or to kind of be outlined this week, giving some sort of a direction, you know, whether it's going to be negative or positive. There is an awful lot going on, and it's certainly something I'm paying close attention to. Not only do we have all this taking place, we also know markets as a whole, we'll take a look at the FTSE, of course we'll take a little look at the dollar, are in this kind of uncertain period where we've got a new interest rate regime taking place, we've got macroeconomics kind of, you know, all over the place at the moment. People trying to look for direction, and markets are seeing the impact of that. Now, I actually think crypto's held up relatively well despite all of this. I think that has a lot to do with the kind of long-term hodlers and the belief within some of these cryptocurrencies that they have. But ultimately, you know, there's never a dull moment in the crypto space. There's never a dull moment in finance. People think finance is boring. It's not, and it's something you should all learn because it directly impacts your life. Anybody that uses money or a fiat system is impacted by finance, and they should, in my opinion, certainly take the time to learn about it. It's kind of like playing a game that you don't know how to play. It will help you. So let's get into the video. Overall markets, indecisive. They go up, they go down. We are seeing a bit of a red day today. We are seeing a red day on the FTSE, which opened. And of course, we're actually seeing a bit of a pullback for the dollar. So again, this is just a common symptom of indecision. Do not like the structure that is currently setting up here, but that doesn't mean that we spill to the downside. I think people are largely hesitant. People are trying to take risk off the table, given, of course, what the Federal Reserve are talking about doing, upping interest rates in March, even though it'll be relatively insignificant and will not, or it will be insignificant, their interest rate hikes in terms of tackling inflation. It's very significant in terms of the amount of debt and how that has now had a little bit more, or becomes more expensive to service. But, you know, markets are very indecisive. And now we have the Biden admin looking to regulate crypto and publishing a report that could come out this week. So what I want to do is play the counter argument for why they should ban crypto. I have to be totally honest with you guys here and put my honest opinion forward. If I was in charge of the US, I would see Bitcoin as a threat. Absolutely. I've done a lot of looking into, and I'm compiling a like a showcase of currencies where I've collected currencies from as far back as I could possibly go, to ancient Greece, all the way up to the current day. Actual examples of these currencies, because you can buy them, they're actually relatively cheap to buy, that I'm going to be showcasing at some point. But throughout history, currencies and the right to be the issuer of currencies has played a huge role in the success of an empire or its demise. And we've seen that with Alexander the Great, for example. We saw that with the Roman Empire. You know, currencies and the reserve status has played a huge role in their success or demise. And that's for a number of reasons. But we'll listen to this counter argument. We'll talk about it, and then we'll move on. We're still seeing huge amounts of adoption. If you guys aren't following Blockworks on Twitter, by the way, guys, well worth a follow. You know, we've got ETF proposals coming from all over the place, like BlackRock, like Charles Schwab's Institute, and so on and so forth. So we'll play this. This is the main reason that they may want to ban Bitcoin. And I agree with what he's saying in the sense that if I was the US, I wouldn't really want a competitor. But the US, Bitcoin is almost inevitable at this point. The US could either, you know, they can either work with it or against it. And working with it, in my opinion, is probably going to benefit not only them, but their citizens far more than against it. So we'll play the clip and then we'll talk about it.
I look for colleagues to join with me in introducing a bill to outlaw cryptocurrency purchases by Americans, so that we nip this in the bud, in part because not an awful lot of our international power comes from the fact that the dollar is the standard unit of international finance and transactions. Clearing through the New York Fed is critical for major oil and other transactions. And it is the announced purpose of the supporters of cryptocurrency to take that power away from us, to put us in a position where the most significant sanctions we have on Iran, for example, would become irrelevant. So whether it is to disempower our foreign policy, our tax collection enforcement, or our traditional law enforcement, the purposes of cryptocurrency, the advantage it has over sovereign currency, is solely to aid in the disempowerment of the United States and the rule of law.
Wow, I hope you heard that okay. This is the real argument against Bitcoin from a United States point of view. They have a lot of power granted to them via being the US Reserve, the world reserve currency. This is why we do these cryptocurrency daily updates, to inspire you guys to think about, you know, the larger landscape at play here, the game that is being played. And because he has a few points there. I don't agree with the sole purpose of Bitcoin being to undermine the US dollar. It kind of is. I mean, if you know why Satoshi created Bitcoin, you'll know he created it in the wake of the 2018 or 2008 financial crisis, which led to bank bailouts, the proliferation of money, the taxation of the many, which was said by Milton Friedman. That's what inflation is. It's the taxation of everyone. Certainly the poorest in society get hit the most and affected the worst. And that's why Bitcoin was created, to kind of implement a fairer, more trustable system of value. And people still don't understand why Bitcoin's valuable. Throughout history, going back to history, I know I can't actually get my hands on a tally stick. Where we get the word tally from was years ago in England, not just in England, they were also adopted elsewhere within Europe. They used to use sticks to represent value. So a debtor and somebody that took the debt out. And the person that took the debt out would get the short end of the stick, which is where we get the saying from. And the person that held the or had lent the debt out would get the long end. And they'd notch it so that they'd know how much was owed. So throughout history, we've used various things, such as sticks, to dictate value. So it's not that far-fetched that Bitcoin actually is valuable and can be used as a system. You know, money is really a thought experiment in many regards, unless you're talking about things like gold and silver that are intrinsic, which we originally came across with the Spanish Inquisition and so on and so forth. But we're getting way off topic. But this is the real argument for, you know, the banning of Bitcoin, that it takes away the power from the US. I'm happen to think that, look, the US should regulate it. They should work towards capitalizing off it, and they'll do far. If they ban crypto, it just goes elsewhere. So they're not going to be doing themselves any favors by doing that. They're not going to, yes, if the US came out and banned Bitcoin, you bet the price would absolutely plummet. But if they do that, what eventually would happen is it would go elsewhere, it would find a new home, and then it would continue. And you could also get people bypassing and, you know, laws. Typically, people do break them. It's not a good idea, but that's kind of what happens. So that's the counter argument. Just something interesting I thought I would share with you. Certainly as we put the bullish case forward yesterday, and I am more on the side of that. But I do think there is, if I was in charge of the US, I would certainly look at Bitcoin as a threat, because a lot of the US's powers come from them having the status as the world reserve currency. Doesn't mean that they couldn't switch. Now, these are a couple of asset managers. So we've got BlackRock, which is $10 trillion, Fidelity, which is $8 trillion, Charles Schwab, which is $7.5 trillion, and BNY Mellon, which is $2.4 trillion. Fidelity plans US ETF tied to metaverse and crypto industry. We've got here BlackRock plans a blockchain and tech ETF amid crypto meltdown. We've got here BY Mellon sees potential for digital asset revenue in 2023. Charles Schwab considers filing for a crypto spot ETF. So we continue to see adoption. This is the third richest man in America, talking about the fact that Bitcoin is better than gold. It's more divisible, easier to buy, transportable, and no storage costs. This ties in nicely with what we've just spoke about. This is the US dollar and its purchasing power. You know, this is why Bitcoin was created in 2008, because Satoshi, whoever he, she, or they were, knew that this was what was happening with fiat systems, and he wanted to create something that bolstered and mitigated that loss of value. And here we have Bitcoin, which has largely been a success, or certainly in my opinion has. We've also got a number of individuals in America, or some of the states within America, looking very favorably on crypto. We have, is it Arizona talking about making it legal tender, or legalizing the status of Bitcoin? You got the Colorado governor. Our plans to allow people to pay taxes in Bitcoin and crypto haven't changed. We've also got the Texas governor candidate on Bitcoin. Taxes can lead the greatest technology shift since the internet. And I absolutely agree with that. I think what's going on here is blockchain as a technology is a kindred to the internet, in the sense that they're both revolutionizing how we do things within the world. We've also got LeBron James. Blockchain technology is revolutionizing our economy. I want to ensure that communities like the one I come from are not left behind. Absolutely. Bitcoin is hugely liberating. And for the exact reasons that we spoke about, that Mr. Schwab was arguing that Bitcoin's bad for the US, it liberates its citizens. It moves them away from getting taxed via things like inflation that they have no control over. They've not done anything wrong. Their government has just decided, and based on their policies, that they want to deflate the monetary supply, or inflate the monetary supply and cause inflation. And that just kills off, you know, if your wage hasn't gone up, CPI is at 7%. So if your wage in the last year hasn't gone up by 7%, you're 7% poorer. And in actual fact, I think the real inflationary stats are a lot higher. And this is the new Texas governor, believe Bitcoin miners can fix the state's power. So we're seeing adoption just excel at a rapid rate. Meanwhile, we've got all this kind of headwind from the Fed, and of course, this taking place But they're going to kill off a lot of innovation. Is Biden really going to come out and cripple crypto being as unpopular as he currently is? I doubt it. However, there is, of course, the argument to be made that Bitcoin is bad for the US in terms of its power given to it via being the world reserve currency. So there's lots taking place that you guys need to take into account. You need to think about all this as an investor. But ultimately, you guys know I'm the ultimate crypto bull and think we've still got a long way to go. We've not even seen any kind of adoption yet as a technology. That's still to come, and you guys get the opportunity to be early investors within that. So we'll take a very quick look at Bitcoin. Largely indecisive again. Every move that it makes is met with quite a bit of indecision. And you can see that with these wicks. It's kind of all over the place. The dollar saw a lot of strength. It's now seeing a bit of a pullback, potential that you can pull back to this EMA, which would potentially allow crypto to see a little bit of an uptick. We've got Cardano, which is largely just following. Although this, in my opinion, Cardano is massively undervalued given its sort of network growth and its volume on chain in comparison with the likes of Ethereum. Ethereum largely just following Bitcoin. We saw the FTSE open with a bit of a downside. We'll watch the other financial markets today. On that note, guys, I'm going to love and leave you. Hope you've enjoyed the content. A like is always appreciated. So is a comment, and I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video. Thank you very much for watching, guys.